we need a new approach. We are a crowded world of 8 billion people, and we are facing multiple crises. We don't get along very well with each other. We are facing geopolitical crises, a hot war in Ukraine, big tensions among the major powers, but also on the economic front, massive, unprecedented inequalities of wealth beyond imagining on one side and extreme poverty on the other. And all of this is coming together with environmental damage and future threats that are also unprecedented at a global scale. After all, 8 billion people, average output per person, depending on how you measure it, somewhere between $10,000 and $20,000 per person, again, with measurement issues. But in any event, that's a big world economy. That's an economy of $100 trillion or more, doing incredible damage to just about every ecosystem, fishery, water supply, climate that we have. So all of this means the world economic system is not working properly. That failure was already identified, I'd say 50 years ago, when the collision between the economy and the environment first came to the global awareness at the Stockholm Summit in 1972. It was really clear by the time of the Rio Earth Summit in 1992, but because of failures of our institutions, failures of our political imagination, and failures of our economic ethics, we're not solving these issues. My country, the United States, is more interested in geopolitics and in U.S. hegemony than it is in global prosperity. And this is a huge crisis because the U.S. is wealthy, but not at all generous. It puts its resources into the military. The budget of the U.S. For military purposes is about $1 trillion a year. The budget for development aid, well, it's tiny, maybe 30 or 40 billion dollars a year, maybe 3 or 4% of the military budget. And then somehow the American leaders are confused why the U.S. isn't liked more, and so on. So all of this means that we have a tremendous amount of confusion about what we should be doing and how to go about doing it. So what's the way out of this? The way out of this is first a proper understanding of our realities in the world in the 21st century. And our realities are a world with advanced technology, incredible inequality, and massive environmental devastation. So what do you do about that? The core idea of what we should do is sustainable development, which means that these technologies should be available for human well-being everywhere, that people have basic economic needs, proper diet, access to healthcare, access to education, access to digital services, access to electricity, that need to be respected for everybody, that we should be investing in technological transformation so that the energy that we undoubtedly need to feed and clothe and provide for 8 billion people is safe, green, renewable energy, not fossil fuel-based energy that is wrecking the climate. And we need to understand that in today's world, no small part of the world can run or should aim to run, or should even think about running the whole world. Unfortunately, the North Atlantic region, including the UK and the United States and Western Europe, got used to the idea that they ran the show. Really, for the last 200 years, the world has been dominated by North Atlantic countries. Britain, of course, swallowed up India completely by 1858 in the British Raj. Africa was divided among the European imperial powers at the end of the 19th century. The United States got into the act after World War II in a very big way, with military bases in 80 countries around the world. Come on. This is pretty outrageous, actually. And the American mindset was, well, the Americans have to run the world or the world's going to fall apart, as if the whole world is waiting for 4% of the world. And by the way, 4% that doesn't have a very good sense of history or geography, telling the rest of the world what to do. And it doesn't work. So we're moving from a North Atlantic world to a multipolar world. That doesn't sit very well with the U.S. policy leaders who want this to be a U.S.-led world. But we should also be clear, we've got lots of tensions all over the world, and some of them have nothing to do with the United States. Some of them just have to do with the interactions of other countries. And this is also extremely dangerous. We need India and China cooperating, really cooperating, not as antagonists, but as two giants that are cooperating with each other. We need both cooperating with the African Union, and not the African Union as some fringe in the world, but as a region that has 1.4 billion people, almost exactly the same number as in India and in China. But Africa has been marginalized for hundreds of years by the major powers: slave trade, imperial rule, continued poverty. This is not acceptable either. So my view is sustainable development, multipolarity, global cooperation, and investing properly in our future. And I think that there are a few key pillars of this that I would emphasize. One is that, unlike governance of the past, we actually need quality governance, governments that know what they're doing and that can think ahead and look ahead for 20 or 30 years. The energy transformation, for example, isn't something you accomplish in a year or two. It requires 30-year forward thinking to decarbonize the energy system. That's a big, complicated challenge. It's not going to be accomplished by the market. It's going to be accomplished by public policy combined with market forces, but led by public policy. But governments need to understand the challenge and how to proceed. So this is one point. Second, solutions are going to require trans-boundary cooperation. Neighbors need to cooperate with each other. Even Pakistan and India, all through South Asia, we actually need countries talking with each other. We need to put aside ancient enmities and get onto practicalities. The Indus River Valley, the Punjab, the protection of the Himalayan region. This is a joint activity for Pakistan and India. We need cooperation, as I mentioned, of China and India, even a power system that spans the two giants, sharing renewable energy systems. So this is another kind of cooperation that's needed. The third area that is critical is finance, because you have to pay for this transformation. And finance involves many, many issues. It involves how budgets are organized. Governments actually need more revenues because they have a responsibility to ensure that education and healthcare and infrastructure reach the poor people, not just the rich people. So the rich people will be reached by the market, but the poor people will not be reached by the market. They will be ignored by the market. So in this sense, we need public policy to ensure universal access. And this is crucial. And the final point that I would mention is we need peace among the major countries. We are not going to achieve any goals in a conflict-ridden world. And somehow, too many politicians have forgotten diplomacy. They think that war is the only approach, or military buildup. Everybody's talking about building up the military right now. What a tragedy and what a waste of resources. And when you look at how horrible these wars are, like the war in Ukraine right now, Ukraine is being devastated by a war between the U.S. and Russia that is being fought on Ukraine's territory. This is actually a U.S.-Russia war, but the Americans say, well, it's good, the Ukrainians are dying, not the Americans. It's a kind of sick idea, but the U.S. pours in the weapons. It wants to expand its military alliance. Russia says, no, we don't want NATO on our border, stay away. You end up with a conflict where neither side hears each other. And then Ukraine thinks, okay, we want to be safe. So they think being safe sides with the United States, but it's ending up getting them destroyed because all it is being in between two giant superpowers, each one just trying to be the more powerful one. It's worse than kids in a playground, except that hundreds of thousands of people's lives are being destroyed. So we're not going to have sustainable development in a world of conflict. We're not going to have sustainable development in a world in which military alliances have divided the world. I would really also hope that India is a great civilization and a great nation is not going to fall into a trap of, well, we're with the Quad siding with the United States against China. This would be a disaster. This is just simple-minded thinking in the world today. Nobody should be against anybody. What we need is common problem solving. We need to understand why different parts of the world have their concerns, and we should listen to them. We should listen to what the red lines of different countries are so that the big powers back off from each other and don't make this kind of war. We should understand that we're at the end of the North Atlantic-led world system and that everybody wants a chance at well-being and prosperity right now. And, you know, maybe 200 years ago, the British could say, we run the world, or 75 years ago, the Americans could pretend they run the world, but we're way past that right now. We're in a world where people are literate, they have access to information, they want their say, they want a world that is fair for everybody. So this is what the ethics of the 21st century are, that we should have shared prosperity, peace through diplomacy, rather than military alliances and wars, a long-term perspective because we have long-term complicated challenges, and cooperation, especially between neighbors, because it's neighbors that share rivers, it's neighbors that share ecosystems, it's neighbors that share coastal waterways, it's neighbors that can trade with each other at the lowest cost. So we need global cooperation, but we especially need strong regions and to end the old conflicts, because we face bigger challenges in the 21st century than 19th century conflicts. So that's the basics that I'd like to share.